Shvuah tov.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're on Gimel Amud Aleph towards the bottom. And the Gemara has spoken about, the Mishnah said that there's a takana that marriage of a basula should be on Wednesday. And the Mishnah said the reason is in order if he has time, that he should come to Bezdin the next day, which is open on Thursday. The Gemara starts about 10 lines, let's open the bottom. Amar Shmuel bar Yitzchak, lo shanu bar takana says Rav Eilech, she'en bati dinim kavun el b'sheni v'chamishi. Aval kodem takana says Rav bati dinim kavun b'chol yom, ishinis is b'chol yom. That whole reason why they made the takana to get married on Wednesday is because Bezdin is open on Thursday, Mondays and Thursdays. We said Monday not, it's because Sunday is not enough time to prepare the wedding. But otherwise, not to do it the other days because we want to, if he has a taina that she's not a basula, he should right away come to Bezdin on Thursday. But that's only when Bezdin is open Tafka Mondays and Thursdays. But in places where it was in times that it was not, and the Bryce said, and Shmuel bar Yitzchak said that before Takanas Ezra there was no specific days of Mondays and Thursdays. The way that it says it is that it was open every day. Rashi says it means that it was no specific day. There was no day more than the other. So then there's no reason to have Dafka Wednesday because not Dafka Thursday, not any more than any other day. So then there's no such takana, and then she can get married any day. The Gemara says, according to Takana says, there's no reason why Shmuel bar Yitzchak should go back to say historically, once upon a time, that there was no Takana Ezra, that she could have got married every day. That's not that's history. We don't talk about past history that's not relevant anymore. So it says it means to say after when, like nowadays when it's not relevant anymore. If nowadays we'll have places where what they did is not after Monday, Thursday, which I think is nowadays. Nowadays there's no special thing about Mondays and Thursdays. So then the takana goes back the way it was. That there was no reason to get married after on Wednesday. We would say the same thing. That the whole reason is because of Mondays and Thursdays. If it's a place or a time that is not after Mondays and Thursdays, so there's no reason to be limited to after get married on Wednesday. There's no reason why Wednesday is better than another day. Fine, that's what he says. The more is a problem of Inan Shaktu that we learned before. Shmuel said so. Now we're going to see so that as a brisa that you have a takana from Chachamim that they should have at least 3 days of preparation for the wedding. So even if it's not going to be because of the Bezdin, that he should be able to go next day. Next day he should be ready to go to Bezdin. But we don't want to have a wedding in the beginning of the week because he wouldn't have enough time to prepare. So the Gemara says the triach lay. In Echnam, you're talking about a case where he did prepare a meal for 3 days. He had 3 days before, either before Shabbos. If he had some preparation before Shabbos and things are not going to get spoiled, that'll be able to prepare 3 days. In Echnam, he does have to have 3 days preparation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Dafka Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. If it would be earlier before Shabbos also, and so too, if you could do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can marry on Thursday. There's no reason to be limited to Wednesday because there's no Bezdin on Thursday. Good. Now the Gemara just wants to say what this is all about Shaktu, which we know from the Beis Aleph, but over there with Shmuel and the Gemara here that said you have to have Shaktu must be the Gemara is referring to something that we know is a given, and that's what we have said now it's a brisa. Shmuel knew it already on that base, but now the Gemara is going to quote a brisa, which is all we're looking for is that it's going to say this point that Chachamim said you have to have preparation of the wedding feast, a 3-day preparation, but the brisa is going to say more, and that's going to trigger us to activate us, more sugyas to come up because Agav, the Bryce is going to say other halachas. So the Bryce starts simply.
Shakta means what?
They were diligent.
To what, to get ready before.
To make a takana. The Chachamim were diligent to make a takana for Bnei Yisrael. They should have a chashav wedding feast. So we'll see right away. We'll see
3 days of
3 days of preparation. We'll see the quotation. The word Shakta was going to be on the 5th line. The Tanya. Why did Chazal say that a basula, a virgin, she can marry on Wednesday? That if he'll have a time that she's not a basula, he'll have relations, he'll see that she's not a virgin, he'll go right away to Bezdin, which is open on Thursday. The Bryce itself asks, if so, that's the only reason. So then let her get married on Sunday also. And if he has any problem, the next day is Monday. Also, the Bezdin is open on Monday. The Bryce says, here it is. We knew it already before. That the Chachamim were diligent to help the Bnei Yisrael. They should have a chashav wedding feast. That it's the chassan should exert himself for the Suda 3 days. Echad b'Shabbos, Sheni b'Shabbos, Shlishi b'Shabbos, or Vivi Konsa. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday should be the wedding. That's all we needed really for our purposes. And that's what the Gemara said a second ago, that if you're in a time that the Bezdin is not dafka open on Mondays and Thursdays, so there's no reason to not dafka make it on Wednesday, as long as you had 3 days of preparation that you prepared for the meal. But Bryce says more, and that extra things that Bryce says is going to go on to new sugyas. It says in the Bryce that there was a certain danger. Doesn't say the Bryce what the danger is. From the danger and on, then the custom of people was to marry on Tuesday, and the Chachamim did not protest. Uvesheni lo yichnos, but not on Monday. Means even though we'll look away from getting married on Tuesday, even though we really the kind was to do it on Wednesday, but there's a danger, so you can't do it on Wednesday. So they did it on Tuesday. We didn't say anything, but still, don't do it on Monday. We don't know. We don't know yet. We're going to see in a second. The Gemara is going to ask soon. My sakana. That's the Gemara coming up in the pink over there. My sakana. But the Brisa says from sakana and on, the people did it on Tuesday, and the Chachamim didn't stop them. But still, don't do it on Monday. Means have at least 2 days of preparation. Sunday and Monday, and then Tuesday marry, but don't just get married on Monday and have only 1 day preparation. If there's an onus, which we don't know what that is either. There's a sakana, there's an onus, we don't know what's happening. But the Brisa says very vague. It says there's a danger, and then also there's an onus, means something was, how do you say an onus? Something like not an accident, it means that something a forced situation. So we don't know what the danger is, we don't know what the forced situation is. But if it's a forced situation, so then even on Monday also it's mutter. So everything's very vague. The beginning was good, everything was good so far, but then it started about a danger, then it talked about a forced situation. The Brisa says one more thing, that you're not supposed to have relations for the first time on Shabbos. The first time that they have relations, that is going to be a chabura, means that cohabitation is going to break the hymen and it bleeds. So then, therefore, they should not do it on Shabbos. They should not have the first time relations on Friday night. We'll see later on. The sukkah is not going to be today. Later on, the Gemara will talk about it. And the halacha is that it's mutter, right? The halacha is that it's mutter even on Shabbos. But we'll see. So far. This Brisa says that they separate on Friday night for the first time. Means the first time that they're together shouldn't be on a Friday night because the act of the cohabitation is going to cause a wound, which is a chilul Shabbos. But that's not going to be our sugya today. So far, that's the end of the Brisa. We bought the whole Brisa, just to zoom out a second. We bought the Brisa because we wanted to know my shakdu, and that's what the Brisa says. Shakdu chacham, we need a 3-day meal, and we got some more information about a danger and about a forced situation. Also, the halacha that it shouldn't be the first time they have relations shouldn't be on a Friday night. And now the Gemara is going to go on to analyze the Brisa. What is the sakana? What is my sakana? What is the sakana that it says that they used to have relations? They used to marry on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Even with Amri Basula, and this is the Amr Vita Hara, if there was some gzeir from the Goyim that if the virgin gets married on Tuesday, like the lach is, she should be killed, means that they made a gzeir against the law. They wanted to make a gzeir against the Torah, that since they knew that the Jews married Dafka on Wednesday, so the Goyim made a decree that whoever marries on Tuesday is going to be killed. So then it wouldn't say Nagu. Then they wouldn't just say that the people, they used to get married on Tuesday because of that, and we didn't say anything. They should have said that, okay, no, then no one should get married on Wednesday. If it's a danger to the life, so then it's not docha. They wouldn't have made such a takana and told them, if you do it, fine. If you get married, they would have said, nobody should get married on Wednesday. So it doesn't sound like that. So what is the case of the sakana that the Brisa is talking about? That the guy made a decree that if a virgin gets married on Wednesday, so then she has to have relations first with the governor, which was the way going to do things, that they wanted to, they had their own interests, but that they wanted to have relations with the young girls. So they made a law that the governor has to first have relations with the bride before the chassan does. So then, because of that, they didn't want to make the weddings on a Wednesday. They did it on Tuesday, and then the governor didn't come. So the Gemara is bothered if that's the pshat. So it's not a sakana, no danger to life, but she'd be raped. So the Gemara says, "Hi sakana onesu." They shouldn't have called it a sakana. The word of the Brisa is not accurate. If it means such a kind of a case, then it would have been an onus, would have been a rape, but it wouldn't be sakana. It's not dangerous to life. The Gemara says, there were some girls that they wouldn't be willing to do that. They would kill them. They would also let themselves be killed rather than be raped. And therefore, there is an issue of sakana also. So, they would come to danger of life, and therefore, that's why the Brisa calls it a sakana. The Gemara says, the girls who are giving their life for that, that's wrong. They shouldn't give their life. If they would give their life, that would be wrong, because even though it's a terrible thing to be raped, but not that they should be most nefesh for that. They shouldn't kill themselves. So why don't we tell them that onus is mutter, if mutter to her husband, that she doesn't become mutter to her husband even if she was raped? So the more answers, that's only when it was beratzon, onus, if it's a rape. But ikaprutzos, there also were girls that were not tsanua, and if they would have been told to have relations with the governor and they don't have to be most nefesh, they would do it even willingly, and then they do become mutter to their husband. If they have relations with a guy, apostle, and willingly, so then they do become mutter to their husbands, only because it was a sakana. That's why Only because it was an onus that they were raped. But if it would have been willingly, so then it would become usher. So we didn't just tell them that onus is mutter because we did want to make it that it's.
This was before this was after the.
She's a married woman.
Right.
She is a married woman, but she didn't have nisuin. She had a nisuin, which means kedushin, but she didn't have nisuin yet. And then by the time of the nisuin, when they get married, so then the governor would come and have relations first. So if it's against their will, so then they're mutter to the husband. If it's willingly, then it's usher to the husband.
I imagine that they did it by will. I'm sure.
The Gemara says the ikar prutzos. They were kedusas, or even most nefesh, and they were prutzos. They were some prutzos. We didn't want to say make light out. We didn't want to make light of it and say to the girls that it's okay. It's not okay. But since it was honest, that's why it's mutter. But there are some girls that would have taken it okay if it's mutter, so no, so they'll do it.
This is where it started with them shaking their heads. That's to look ugly for the governor. So
if that's how it happened historically, okay, but then there's no reason to do it now. For sure, for sure, it's the wrong thing to do nowadays to shave their heads.
That's where it started.
Economic kahanos. There are also women that are married to a kohanim, and if they are raped, and they are rusted to the husband, even if it's against their will. A kohenes is also if she's raped, even against their will. So therefore, we couldn't just say that they're mutter to their husbands because it isn't mutter to their husbands. So that's why they looked aside. It means really that the kohen was to get married on Wednesday, but because of this situation, the girls used to get married on Tuesdays in order to avoid the governor, and the chachamim didn't say anything. The Gemara says more. They still should have said, why not say there's no takana of Wednesday? Tell everything, no Wednesday. Forget about Wednesday. Get married on Tuesday. The Gemara says because this only was a temporary gezerah. Gezerah avida the butler, but they counted the rabbanon and become gezerah lo akrina. That this decree of the goyim was only a temporary thing. So we didn't want to abolish the takana of chachamim, which really is proper to get married on Wednesday. It was a temporary gezerah that the goyim made, so we didn't uphold the gezerah at that time. We told and people who used to get married on Tuesdays, we said fine, but we're not going to say that we're abolishing the gezerah of Wednesday because eventually that decree of the goyim is going to become nullified, and then we want that to go back to Chazal's way. The right way is supposed to do it to get married on Wednesday. If they're going to get married on Tuesdays, then the governor is going to come on Tuesdays. If they stopped getting married on Wednesdays and they started getting married on Tuesdays, and the governor is going to come Tuesday. They didn't help themselves anything. The Gemara says no. He wouldn't come to the town and make a whole balagan if he wasn't sure that there are weddings. If the weddings were all on Wednesday, he would come Wednesday and he would do it. But if they wasn't sure, it just was like unofficial that they made the weddings on Tuesdays, so then he wouldn't come. That was the pshat in the brisa. So far, we just go back and analyze what the brisa said. It said in machmas that if there was a danger, what's the danger? The Gemara says the danger was that they made it the goyim made a decree that the girls have to first have relations, cohabit with the governor first, so they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to be raped, and some of them even with most nefesh. That's why it's called a sakana. And therefore, the chachamim didn't stop them from getting married on Tuesdays. They didn't say openly that it's mutter, that she'll be mutter to her husband. Some women will not if they do it with pruso. So the wives of kohen won't be mutter to their husbands. But it wouldn't be a sakana. They wouldn't have to give their life, but some of them would. So therefore, they didn't stop them from making the wedding on Tuesday. But they didn't abolish the gezerah completely of getting married on Wednesday because this goyish gezerah would eventually get nullified. And we wanted to put the chacham, the kind of back in place that the right time to get married is on a Wednesday. But it said even in this case, don't get married on Monday because then you're only going to have one day of preparation for the feast. I want to have at least 2 days. Even under this situation where it was a dochak and they had to get married on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, but don't get married on Monday. That's already too early. Then the brisa ended off. Not the end, but it said one more thing. If there was an onus, some forced situation, so then it's mutter even on Monday. So what does that mean now? That's what we're up to now. That's the next one is kasha. Even in such a case, don't get married on Monday, just on Tuesday. The machos onus mutter. If there's some kind of onus, then it's mutter even on Monday. What's the onus? What is this forced situation? And if it was the same case we're talking about that the governor came and he had relations, and that's why they were forced. There was a rape. So then, Hassan Kari like Sakana, Hafi Kari like onus. What does it mean to say that if there was a case that the governor came also on Tuesday, then you could do it on Monday also? So then it shouldn't have changed the word of Sakana to onus. It's the same case. It wouldn't have changed the terminology. The Su Hasam Nagu Achamutter. Also, the whole terminology changes. Before it said that they used to when there was a Sakana, the people used to get married on Tuesday, and we didn't say anything. And if it's on Monday with an onus, then it's also mutter. So two things changed. One is the word Sakana to onus, and one is the term of Nahagu to mutter. So all that shows that that's not the pshat. The case of the onus is not the same case as before, just that happened on Tuesday also besides Wednesday. There's something else happening over here. So what's this new case of the onus? Amar Rava. So there's going to be two pshatim to answer this kasha. One is short, and that's Rava, and then it's going to be a second teretz of Iboy Sema. So the first teretz is Amar Rava. The army sounds for Balir. That the army, the general is coming. So in the Gemara, it's not. I wouldn't know what that means. The Gemara before said the governor now means the general. Rashi says it means that when they came, they took the food of the people. Rashi says sounds for Balir. The yachta food tzarchi yasuda mashayim. So if there's going to be a wedding banquet, they're going to come and take all the food. That was the problem. That the reason why they couldn't do it on Wednesday or Tuesday because the army was coming and they just took whatever food that they saw. So no, something else. A whole different case altogether. Something else. And if the case was that they came and took the food, there was an army coming in like the quartering act kind of thing. They came and took the food. So then they couldn't make the meal even on a Tuesday sometimes, then they do it even on a Monday. If they were just passing through, so then wait until they pass. Not a reason to make the wedding earlier. Make it, Rashi says, next week. Taisa says maybe just wait till they pass and make it on the same day. What does it mean till they passed? And you have to put the food away. I mean, don't set the tables and make the wedding, then they come in. But you can have the food ready as soon as they're going to leave. So why make it so much earlier? They're coming to stay. They're going to be here for a while. So then if we're not going to make the wedding earlier, we don't know when we're going to be able to make it. So therefore, if the onus is going to be that the army is coming and they're taking the food, so then you could even make it on a Monday also. The question was, here it sounds like, it sounds like they're coming, this onus of the army coming is going to be on Wednesday. So then, therefore, it says you could do it even on Monday. Why not on Tuesday? Come on, make the wedding on Tuesday, it's coming on Wednesday. The answer is Asparva the day begimul kasu. That means somebody before the general comes, so then some kind of entourage comes before. Rashi says, I don't know what the word is, but it means that before the general himself comes with the army, so then there's some brigade that comes earlier to get the food ready. So they go to the town and see what's doing, any banquets happening, and they will take the food. So then if they're coming on Wednesday, so then they couldn't make the meal either on Tuesday either, and therefore it says it's even mutter on Monday. That was one shot in the Brisa to explain that the onus was that the army's coming, and therefore not only on the day itself that they're coming on Wednesday, you can make it on Tuesday either. Then you're not even and make it on Wednesday. Ibai Sema. This Ibai Sema is another shot in the Brisa to explain what the onus is, and that's going to open up a whole new sugya about Avelos. If the Chassan or Kala became Avelim right when the wedding's supposed to happen, and the meal is all ready, and they're going to lose the whole meal if they're going to push it off because of Avelos. So now it's going to open up a whole sugya about Avelos right before the wedding. Ibai Sema. My machmas onus Kidatanya. The other shot will be going back to the winter Brisa. It says onus. In machmas onus mutter. What does that mean? The first shot was that it was the army is coming to take away the food. So then they're coming on Wednesday, and they even come Tuesday also already. So then you have to make the wedding on Monday. Another pshat is the case is like this. Kidatanya. So we're starting a new sugya about Avelos before wedding. I may show you Pito Opui with Tifo to Ruach V'Yena Mazuk. The wedding's all ready. The bread is baked, and the shchita they shechted whatever animals they need for the meat, and the wine is already diluted, ready to go to make the wedding. And then suddenly,
that wine
is mazug. Yeah, for sure they had. That's for sure. That says always that it was diluted. The question was if our wines got weaker or not. But in those days, they used to dilute the wine. Rashi says once you diluted it, it can't stay so long anymore. You can't keep it for another time. And the chassan's father or the kala's mother died. Now they're in Avelis. The chassan or kala are in Avelis. We'll see soon why it says after the chassan's father, after the chassan's mother, the kala's father. But it says the chassan's father, the kala's mother. So then what are you going to do? Push off the wedding? You're going to lose the whole wedding feast that's already prepared. So you put the mace aside to wait after the wedding, and the chassan and kala they marry, and then uboel bilos mitzvah. They also, even though they're available, one of them is a novel, still they have relations. Uporish, and then they separate. The no ekshivas shemei mishnah v'achach no ekshivas shemei avelos, and then they're going to, of course, they bury the mace, but they don't start avelos until after the shivas shemei mishnah. The shivas shemei mishnah, the shevet, what we call shevet brachas, but it means 7 days. 7 days of the banquet of feasting, so that is dochad avelos, and they don't do avelos till after the shivas shemei mishnah. And that's the case of the onus. Onus mutter. If there's onus, what was the onus? It's a new pshat. That the onus means that chassan kala became a novel. So then also you're allowed to make the meal. That doesn't talk about. This is not the issue of Monday, Tuesday. This is not the issue of Monday. It's saying that then you're allowed to even make the onus mutter if it will be an onus, and also you're allowed to make the wedding before the burial. And you actually says you make the wedding before the burial. You have to. If you make the burial first, then they're available. Then they're available. Then they're available. Not because you can't waste. Because if you bury first, then they're available. Then they won't be able to get married. But the case is that you don't start available until after they have relations, and then they have shivas. Then they have the meal also. I mean, the available, the rest of the available, they can't come to the wedding. But the other friends who come to the wedding feast, it's not going to get ruined. But the other relatives that are not the chassan kala, so then they don't have the shivas imam mishnah. They won't be able to attend the wedding, but they still have the wedding, and the feast won't go to waste. Now it says some of the Brashla sense of some halachas about availus. The Brashla seems to say that during those days of the shivas yemei, all those days over here, even during the shivas imam mishnah and the shivas imam availus, did I get it right? So then they sleep separately. It means they can't have yichud. That the chassan sleeps with the men, the kala with the women. That means that they're not misyached. They don't have seclusion with each other because they're not allowed to have relations. I guess it means not during shivas imam mishnah. I guess it means during the shivas imam availus. During the shivas imam availus, that they're in ovel. Rashi says that the reason why they separate is because they're in ovel. Rashi says, Rashi says that the shivas imam mishnah and the shivas imam availus, because in ovel is also betashmish. I got it. That's the more going to say. Even during shivas imam mishnah. Yes, and even though shivas imam mishnah, but we're going to see soon that dvam shel sin and knowing. The Gemara is going to point this out that even though they're in the Yom Tov time, during the shivas imam mishnah, they're the available, for sure they also have relations. But during the shivas imam mishnah, maybe they're mutter because for them it's a Yom Tov. No, even though it's a Yom Tov, but they still have a din like we say that the dvam shel sin and knowing, even though Yom Tov there's no available, but dvam shel sin means things that are done in privacy like relations. Then it does apply. Thus, you don't do Avelis Professor, you don't do open Avelis. So therefore, they're not allowed to have relations besides the Bilas Mitzvah. That's before the Avelis started. So then they have a Bilas Mitzvah. That's the first time that they have relations is called Bilas Mitzvah. But after that, they're not allowed to have relations till after the Avelis is over. So the 14 days, the 2 weeks of Shivas Me'am Mishnah, and the week of Avelis, they're not allowed to have relations. So therefore, they don't have Yichud either. Here it says they don't even have Yichud. They're not supposed to even have what's kasha. What? I don't follow what the question is. I'm not sure what's following. We're talking about we're taking there's no Avelis even during Shivas Me'am Mishnah also. But Shivas Me'am Mishnah means that there's no Avelis, but there's Avelis B'tzina. That means that those acts, those points of Avelis that nobody else sees, like relations, and nobody sees, so then it does apply even during Shabbos, Yom Tov. Yeah. So therefore, they're not allowed to be together for 2 weeks. It means they're not allowed to have seclusion. The Avelis is also, the Dvam Shel Sin is also even by Yom Tov, Shabbos, and here talking about Shivas Me'am Mishnah, it applies, and therefore they don't have seclusion during these 2 weeks. Even though Oval usually is not allowed to have tachshit and all kinds of makeup, but for 30 days, the Kala should have makeup. You don't hold it back from her because Shlot is Gana al Bala, that she shouldn't become ugly. During the first 30 days, it's important that Chassan should see as Kala as beautiful, and therefore the first 30 days, even though she's in Avelos, she still does not stop her makeup. That's the end of the Brisa. Now the Gemara takes over. So what we needed here is just to show this point that there's a case of Avelos and a smutter to make the wedding, even though they became Avelim, and you push off the Avelos till after the burial, and they're Shivas Me'am Mishnah, and then they're going to do Avelos a week later. That was the Pshat of Brisa. So because of this, it triggered now a new subject. We jumped into a new subject about Avelos. Now the Brisa said the Chassan's father and the Kala's mother. So the Gemara says, "V'dafka Aviv shel Chassan Aviv shel Kala." Dafka this way, because there's nobody that's going to help. That means the Chassan's help is the meal, and the Kala's help is her tachshitin. And the Chassan's father is the one who takes care of the meal, and the Kala's mother is the one who helps her with her makeup and tachshitin. But if it would have been the opposite, that Chassan's mother or the Kala's father, so then there's no emergency to make the meal right away. That means the tachshit and the makeup that she had on. So now, if they're going to push off the wedding, she's not going to have somebody to help her later on with all her tachshitim. And if the Chassan's father if they're going to push off the meal, he's not going to have somebody to help with the meal afterwards. But if it would be the Chassan's mother or the Kala's father, there's no reason to rush the wedding. They can be Avelis first and then do the wedding after the Avelis is over. We spoke about that there was the case of the bread is baked and the meat is shechted already, And what else? And the wine is Muslim. So the Gemara talks about the meat. When we said that the meat, after you shechted it, it's not going to stay fresh. That's only if they put water onto it. If there was no water on it, you could sell it. You could sell this meat and get other meat. There's no big loss. The other case, the wine that's already Muslim, nobody's going to buy. I'm not sure if you'd be able to. Maybe that case also, if you can sell the wine. The Gemara talks about the meat alone. There's the bread, the meat, and the wine. The Gemara talks about the meat and says the meat is only considered a hefsid if you cannot sell it right now. But if you can sell it, so then sell it and you get you have the money. You'll be able to make it next week. So what's the case that the meat is not resellable? Once you put water on it. If you put water on it, then people are not going to buy it anymore. But if it's fresh meat that you just shechted, you can go to the market and sell it. Krach is a big city, a big metropolis, a lot of people. Over there, there's such a big demand for meat, even if you put the water on it, you all could sell. Also could sell it, that's also not considered a loss. A kfar is a small little village over there. You can't sell the meat even if it will be freshly shechted, but there's no water on it. Also, you cannot sell it. So then it will be a hefsid. So what's the case where there's difference if there's water or not? In the krach, in any case, it's not considered a hefsid. In the kfar, in any case, it is considered a hefsid. What's the case where the water is the factor? Rashi said in Masar B'chasi, which is the name of his city, and he says the Mafka Mikrach or Mafka Mikfar, it's smaller than a metropolis, but it's bigger than a small village, like a regular city. Taisha says the woman is like a regular city. Regular cities, that's where the Korea is the water or not. But if it's an extra big city, then it's never a hefsid. Extra small city, then it's always a hefsid. Tani Kivasa Dev Chista, we learned the brisa like that the chiluk is about the only with the water being on the meat. And it's going to say that in the brisa again, we got a bonus over here. It's going to be a big brisa, but all we want here is that there's Maim al Gabi Bosa, or the brisa does say the point of Rav Chisda. Tani Kivasa de Rav Chisda, Reishaya Pita Opui, Tivchot Tavuach, Yain Mazub, V'nos Maim al Gabi Bosa. That's what the brisa says more than we had before. Before it didn't say this point. Rav Chisda said so, and he brought it right to Rav Chisda because the brisa over here does say that the loss is because they already put water onto the meat, so it's not going to stay. You can't resell it. But what does the brisa say? If the bread was baked and the slaughtering was slaughtered already, the wine was mazug, diluted, and there was water on the meat, and then the whole story happened, which we know already. And the chassan's father died, or the kala's mother. You put the mace into a room on the side until the chassan and kala have relations, and then they have relations for the first time, and then they can't have. Then they stop for 2 weeks. The no Shivas Yimei HaMishta, Vachach no Shivas Yimei HaVeilos, they have the Shivas Yimei HaMishta first, but they still can't have relations during that time. Then the Shivas Yimei HaVeilos, and the Brisa says, like I said before, during those 2 weeks, they can't even have a yichud because v'choshed that they're going to have relations, they're not allowed to.
Can they? Surely they're eating the suda, right?
Yeah. Shivas Yimei HaMishta. What's the problem? I'm not sure what you mean to say.
No, because all they say is that
we said that they shouldn't have yichud. They shouldn't have yichud.
The mitzvah.
They have relations when they have then they have relations one time.
And they should then continue.
Then they have Shivas Yimei HaMishta, but during those times they don't have relations the rest of the 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then it says they're not even have yichud. They have to sleep separately. That shouldn't come to yichud because v'choshish they're going to have relations and they're not allowed to. And the Brisa adds on something more now that we didn't have to talk about. Not only the case of Avelis, there's another case where a person can have relations with his kala. If she became a nida, they got married, then she became a nida. So now
Before they had.
Oh, so that's going to be the Gemara. The Gemara says what you said, that if they didn't have relations yet, that's going to be the Gemara. But Sofar doesn't say. It says also Sofar says if a person's wife is a nida, he can't have yichud. He has to get out of the house. What?
So then do the burial.
We're not talking about burial. We're talking about regular chas and kala. Everyone's alive and well, but she became a nida. So it says that they asked to have yichud. We'll see more about that also. The Moshe will talk about what Moshe said, that it could be only before they had relations for one time. Or else it would sound like any time a woman becomes a nida, they have to separate. No yichud, they have to go out of the house because she became a nida. That's not true. So we'll see what that means. And we don't stop the kala from having her tachshit in all 30 days. What would that be the case? Here, if it's talking about Avelos, so we had that already before, that it's going back to the Avelos, I guess, that if the kala is allowed to have a tachshit in all 30 days, even though she's in Avelos. Shabbos, in any case, they can't have relations on Erev Shabbos, means Friday night, which Rabbi said before also, there's a chavura, there's a point about making a wound because the Bilas Mitzvah does cause a wound, but now it says also Lob Motzei Shabbos, we don't know what that means. What is Motzei Shabbos? What's the problem? So we have to wait for the Gemara. Rashi says, hold on, the Gemara will talk about it later. Now so we got a lot of extra credit. The bonus brings another bonus, and we're getting more and more information that we didn't even have to look for, but we just needed the case about that there's an onus that sometimes they make the wedding even though he became an Avela, she became an Avela, because they shouldn't lose the Suda. And now the Gemara goes back to the point about no Yichud. Amama, the Bryce is now we're going to analyze the Bryce. It says the Bryce, who Yashem ben Anoshim, Yashem ben Anoshim, they're not allowed to have Yichud because they might have relations and not allowed to. This is a support to Rabbi Yochanan, which Rashi wrote down already, that even though there's Moed, Shabbos, there's no Avelos, but the Vom Shal Sin knowing those things that are done in privacy, which means nobody sees the Avelos, you can't show Avelos publicly. But things that nobody sees, there is Dini Avelos. So wearing shoes, things like that. So he has to put on shoes because he goes barefoot, so then people see that it's an Avelos. He can't show Avelos in public. But not to have relations, nobody sees that he's not having relations. So therefore, it does apply. And just like Yontif, it's us to have relations, and Shabbos Yontif, so too, during Shivas Yimei HaMishta, even though they are celebrating their wedding and they're like a Yontif mode, but still they're not allowed to have relations, and therefore they don't have Yichud. The Gemara continues, next point, the halacha that they can't have seclusion is only if they didn't have relations yet. That's what Moshe was saying before, that if a man's wife becomes a nida, and they had relations already in the past, like when regular marriage, that there's a period, she has a menstrual cycle, she becomes a nida, that doesn't mean the asa b'yichud, because once they had relations one time, so then he could control himself. But the first time they got married and didn't have relations, that's called Yisro Tokfo. He has a strong inclination to have the relations, and therefore, then there's a yichud. This yichud is only if he didn't yet have relations, no ball. But once he had relations with his wife one time, so then they're allowed to be together. Ishta Yoshena Imo, they could be in the same room, they could have seclusion, and there's no issa of yichud. But the problem is that the Bryce here we're talking about on the top, not only person either. It's talking about by the Shivas Yimei HaMishta, by the Avel, and it says Bol Bilas Mitzvah, and then it says also that they have seclusion. That's the most kasha. On one hand, we're saying by the Nida, it says that if they had relations one time, she's mutter. And here it says even though they had relations, this case of the Avelos, they had relations one time. That was the Bol Bilas Mitzvah. They had relations, and then it still says they're still usher to have yichud. Why? If you say once they had relations one time, the Yitzhak Hara is down, and they can control themselves, then notice that it's a yichud, usher to have relations, but not usher yichud. And by neither we say that once you had relations, it's mutter. And here it says even after they had relations one time, it's still usher to have seclusion. That's the most kasha. Kasha is good. What?
Because if they had, right, I'm not sure I understand.
There are two cases over here. We're trying to compare two cases. Bryce says two things. The one is case that they became an Avelim, right before they're ready for the wedding. One of them became an Over. So there it says they can have relations one time. You put the mates into a room, they have relations one time, and they have Shivas Yimei HaMishta, then Shivas Yimei HaVelos. But they're usher to have relations the second time, till after the 14 days, and they're not allowed to have seclusion either during those 14 days. They have to sleep separately, with the man and the woman. That means there's no seclusion, even though they have relations already, one time. But by Nida, we say it's only usher to have seclusion, to be yichud, only if they never had relations, low ball. But once they had relations one time, there's no issa for a man to be with his wife. That's what happens by a chasana. If they she becomes a Nida, before they had relations, then they can't have yichud. They bring a kid home, whatever, and they don't have yichud. But if they had relations one time after the wedding, even though she becomes a Nida, then they have no problem. They go on as regular. So that's the kasha. Here it says that even by the case of Avelos, it says even if they did have relations one time, they still are usher to have yichud. That's the most kasha. 3 lines up. Here the case is by Avelos, they had relations one time, like it says, Bala Bilas Mitzvah, and still they have to sleep separately. So the Gemara says, Ki Kamar Pirsa Ishto Nida. That this halacha of Rav is only by Nida. By Nida, once they have relations, so then they're not chashud that they're gonna have relations again. He could control himself because the isser of Nida is very chumor, so Issa Kores. So then, once they had, if they didn't have relations, then even that's a problem. They might be over Issa Kores because there's such a burning desire, and he might have relations even though she's a Nida. But once they had relations one time, so then he's okay. He says he has in control, and since it's Issa Kores, but the Issa for an Ovel to have relations is not so chamor. It's not like Issa Kores, it's Asa, but it's not Issa Kores. So then we're choshed that even if they had relations one time, still the desire to have relations is still going to be strong, and therefore they have to have Issa seclusion, Yisa Yichud, even if that relations are ready. The kasha is what? Pierce Nida. I'm not sure what the word Pierce means. I don't know what the word means. But when it's called that, she has a striker. That's called Pierce Nida. I forgot what I forgot, or I never knew what the word means. It's good that you pointed it out to find out what the word Pierce means. If anybody knows, please tell us. The kasha is it says in the Bryce sounds like both of them are the same. It says first it says the din of Avelos, then it says when we put that over here, we had it in the blue. It says first it says old halachas, and then it says it sounds like it's the same thing. Everything's the same. And before you're saying that it's usher, even though they had relations, here it says it's usher only if they did not have relations. So it's not the same. It says v'chein. Then my answer is Amud Beis. You have to stick in the words that it's not exactly the same. The same idea applies that sometimes they're not allowed to be together, but here the case is only as low ball. By the case of Avelos, it's also even ball because it's not so chomo. But by the neither, which is chomo, it's chiv kore, so then only machmir if it was low ball. Okay, so far we're doing well. That there's a chiddush about a difference between the Isser Nida and the Isser of Avelim. The Isser of Nida is obviously more chomer, and therefore over there we're not so machmir. Once they have relations, he's okay. He's not going to be boiled with you don't have to ask a yichud. But by the Isser of Avelim, it's not such a chas Isser chomer, and he might have relations even if he was born. But the Gemara has a problem with that. Remember that Avelis kidlu leim Nida. You're saying that Avelis is not so stringent upon him like Nida, and by Avelis we're machmir more. Because it's light to him, we're machmir more than by Nida. The Gemara asks a kasha, but I think I ask a little introduction. There's a thing called malachos chiba, love. That means that a woman has to do certain service. She's like the Suba makes that husband is obligated to his wife. He has to bring in the money, whatever obligation the husband has to his wife, and the wife also has obligations to her husband, and that's to cook and to do laundry. These are things that says in the Mishnah. It's the obligations of a woman to her husband. Of course, when there's happy marriage, everyone's doing it without the Mishnah says so, without a bezdin. But there are obligations that a person gets married is obligated. So over there it talks about that if she has a certain amount of shfachot, so then she doesn't have to do as much work because she has maids that are doing the work. But there's a thing called malachas chiba. Malachas chiba means a woman does things that make herself beloved upon her husband. And that it's going to say here about pouring the wine and for making the bed, and for washing his hands and feet, face, hands and feet. Which now, I said that point. Rashi brings it in. Rashi calls that, and that's the term that they use when they talk about. But here it doesn't say those words. You're right. But nowadays, this is not the culture nowadays. That in our culture, that's not something the woman doesn't wash her husband's face. That's not the culture nowadays. But hatzas mita means that she makes the bed ready to go to sleep. So that's something that even if she has maids, she still has to do because that's the proper relationship between husband and wife, and it arouses their love between each other. So the Gemara is kasha between a nida and avela. Means you're talking about which one is a more chash, is one more than the other, that they might get aroused. You don't want to arouse the husband when he is not allowed to have relations. So here it says, everything that a woman does for her husband, nida also does for her husband, even though she's in nida. She still does all the work, cooking, cleaning, whatever she's supposed to do. That these things that cause chiba, it causes the husband to be aroused, she shouldn't do it. The nida should not do it because she might arouse her husband. So these things, the woman does not pour the cup of wine for her husband, she doesn't make the bed for him, she doesn't wash his face. Okay, so that's one halacha. Second halacha, but that if a woman is an avelus, so the husband cannot force her to put on makeup. There's different kinds of makeup. So even though he's interested in the makeup, he can't. She's an avelus. She's an avelus. So he can't force her to put makeup. She's an avelus. But these things she does do for him. Even though she's an avelus, she's still obligated to the services to her husband. So therefore, she does pour the cup, and she does make the bed, and she does wash his face. So what do you see? As far as the arousal by the nida, we were what do we say? That we were concerned that she should not do it. She should not arouse him. And here we're not concerned that even though she does these things, we're not kosher she's going to get aroused and he's going to have relations with her. So which one is more chomer? Before we said that the nida was so chomer and we were not so machmir. Here's the opposite. Here the case is that by a nida, we say he should not do it. She should not do it because she might arouse him. And by Avelos, here it says we'll make her that she could do it. It's the opposite of what we said before. That's more kasha. Low kasha. Kam Avelos diday, kam Avelos didah. First, the Gemara tries to answer. This is the one answer. Yeah, this is the first. There's going to be another answer coming up. But this answer was, who's an Avel? Is he Avel or is she an Avel? Here the Gemara says the only time that here it says Avelos didah by her, she's an Avel. when she's a novel, she's not going to, his arousal is not going to make a difference because she says like, now's not the time. So if the case is by Anida, so then if he'll get aroused, he'll have relations. So we say, don't arouse him. But if she's in Avelos, even though she's going to do these services that cause fever, that arouse, but she's not going to want, she's not in the mood, she's an Avel. So she's not going to get aroused. So therefore, that's safe. If he's an Avel, then we are scared that he'll get aroused and he'll have relations. So Enechanami, if it would be his Avelos, we would not allow. It means we're going to go back and say that what we said before is true. The only difference over here that it says that she's allowed to do these malachas is only because she's a novel, not that he's a novel. If he'd be a novel, so then we would be scared that the arousal will cause him to have relations that we don't want. The same way by Nida we don't let. Even by Nida, which is homo, we're still scared that he's going to get aroused and have relations for a Nida. Surely the arousal could cause him to have relations even if he's a novel. But if she's a novel, then it's safe. The Gemara has a problem with that because the bride it said over there both cases, even in the case that she's an Avelus. Rashi says, Alma Bavelus Nami Achmetana del El. That if you're saying that aroused, then we shouldn't have cared of having yichud also. Before the Rashi said in both cases, it sounds like they get the case before about yichud, that they have bilas nisfal formation. Over there it said that they can't have yichud. It seems to be going on in both cases, even in the case when she is an Avelos. So now you're saying that when she's an Avelos, it's okay because she's not going to be interested. So how come we asa yichud even when she is an Avelos? Now that the Gemara distinguished between him being an Avel, she being an Avel, and he say that the halacha about washing the face and it's the difference if he's an Avel or she's an Avel. So then also by yichud, there should be the same difference. That if she's an Avelos, we should not asa yichud. The Gemara answers ki katani ashora. That when it says the v'chein over there, the case of the Imish Al-Khan is only by the rest of the halachas. This particular halacha doesn't apply. Anachanami, the halacha that they asked to have yichud is only when he's an Avel. But when she's an Avel, there is no asa yichud. The Gemara has a question on this. Is that true that there's difference between who's an Avel? Umi shani lan ben Avelos nidei lavelos nida. Is there a difference of who's the Avel, him or her? Vatanya. Misha meis chom levochamoso. It's going to bring a brisa. It seems to say that it's all the same as far as certain halacha. It's not going to say by the issue of seclusion. It's not going to say one more than the other. What does it say? Misha meis chom levochamoso. If somebody's father-in-law or mother-in-law died, I mean she's an Avel. The wife's an Avel. Any like I said before, that a man cannot force his wife to put on makeup. She's an Avelos. On the contrary, not only does he not force her to be normal because she's an Avelos, she doesn't put on makeup. On the contrary, he also is supposed to turn over his bed and act in Avelos with him. Turning over the bed is something we had in Moed Katan. Nowadays, people don't do it. It's not the custom, but there was such a thing as Kfiyah Samita. One of the things of Avelos was to turn the bed over. They would overturn the beds in the house. So here it says that not only can he not stop her from doing Avelos, he has to do Avelos also. When somebody's father-in-law or mother-in-law died and his wife is in Avelos, so he should act Avelos with her. The same way the opposite. If a woman's father-in-law or mother-in-law died, that means that her husband is in Avelos. She should not be putting on makeup. Her husband's an Avel, so she shouldn't put on makeup, even though she's not an Avelos. Ella kofa mitasa v'negesim Avelos. She has to turn over her bed and also act with Avelos with him. Anyway, what does the Gemara want? That as far the Rashi points out that we'll see in the Gemara's Teres that it doesn't say a difference over here between him and her as far as the Issa of Yichud. The Rashi before said is Issa of Yichud by Avelos, and the Gemara has said that what as far as even if they had relations, even if they had relations, that's very interesting. According to the Gemara over here that we learned so far, even if someone's married 20, 30, 40 years and they become Avelim, so the issue of having relations during Avelis is not such a big issue to people, and therefore it's us to have Yichud. That's something that the Gemara didn't talk about. Someone's married a long time. It just talks about they just got married, they had Bila one time. But there's no difference 1 time or 100 times. It says that there's a chash that they're not going to keep the halacha, that it's us to have relations, and they would have to separate. So according to what the Gemara said so far, if he's an Avel, the Gemara said so far the difference between he's an Avel, she's an Avel. When he's an Avel, we're not going to trust him, and he wouldn't be allowed to have yichud with his wife, even if they're married a long time. If she's an Avel, so then she's not interested, and we're not scared about the yichud. But if he's an Avel, he might get aroused, and then it shouldn't have yichud. Here the Gemara has the kasha that it says the halachas when he's an ovel, when she's an ovel. It doesn't say by any of them that they have also be yichud. And you're saying now that if he's an ovel, they should be also be yichud. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara answers, to me, va'avelos didei hu yoshen ben anoshim v'ishti yoshen ben anoshim. Sticking to the brisa, if he's an ovel, they also have yichud. And we're still holding on to what we said, that avelos had nothing to do with the first, before the first beer, by neither of the chiluk if they had relations the first time or not. And if they had relations one time, then mutter to be have yichud, even after she becomes a nida. But as far as the issue of avelim, if he's an ovel, we're scared that the issue of having relations as an ovel is not so strong, and also people not so scared of it, then he might get aroused and have relations with his wife. So therefore, they also have yichud. But if she's an ovel, it's not a problem. The Gemara says v'avachin katani. The Brisa sounds like again that they're both the same. There's no difference between if he's an ovel and she's an ovel. That's as far as the other halachas, as far as makeup, then there's no difference. Who's a novel? He's a novel, she's a novel. But as far as yichud, there's a issa yichud if the husband is an avelus. The one says, well, imo katani. It says that when he's an avel, where did it go? When he is a novel, it says kofa mitosa v'neges imo avelus, that she also has to act avelus with him, and it says imo with him. It sounds like they're together. It sounds like yichud. My love imo b'mita doesn't mean that they're together in the bed. It means that they have yichud, and he's saying that you're allowed to have yichud even if he's a novel, and you said you're not allowed to. Lo imo b'bayis, and it doesn't mean that. It means something else altogether. It means that when do we say that the spouse has to have avelus together with the one who's an avelus? Means the husband or the wife. They have to do avelus with their spouse, even though it's not their father and mother, it's the wife's father and mother, was the husband's father and mother. So when is that halacha applied that the spouse also keeps avelus? Only in the presence of the avel. That means there's halacha, again, people don't do it nowadays. The Ramah says that not to do, the Ramah says to do this, but the Ramah says not the minhag, and he says not to do it. The halacha really is that a person who's sitting in avelus, his relatives, when they're in the presence of the avel, they also act in avelus. Like they wouldn't wear shoes, they sit on the floor. But the minhag is not like that. But the Gemara says that when a person is in avelus, the relatives also act in avelus in his presence. And here it says, that's what I'm saying over here, that the husband and the wife, the husband's in avelus, the wife also turns over her bed. Same way the husband does. Nowadays, no one turns over the bed. But the same way that the husband who's in avelus will turn over the bed, the wife also turns over her bed. Or if the wife's in avelus, then the husband turns over his bed in honor of his wife, who's sitting on avelus. So that's what I mean to say. But bias, if they're together in the same house, then they have to do avelus. Like Rav told his son Chia, when Chia, his son's wife, was in avelus, Rav told his son, Ba'apa no gavilusa. The low Ba'apa, most in the gavilusa, in her presence, in the presence of your wife, also act in avelus because she's in avelus, but not in her presence. There's no din of avelus. So far the Gemara got through the first shot to answer the contradiction. The contradiction goes back to on Abba Aleph. It said over here that the din of being asa b'yichud, the Gemara kasha between the case of nida and the case of avelus, and the Gemara said that what did the Gemara say? That there's difference between avelus and nida, and the Gemara kasha from avelus is kill or avelus is chomor. The Gemara has the kasha based on that terrace that we find sometimes that avelus is not kill. Avelus is not more lenient to people. So now Rav Ashi answers, Rav Ashi Amar Mika Madamis Avelusa Dachal Avelusa Dalma Avelusa Dalma Chamer Velo Asilus Azulei Bay Avelus Dachal even like Kilo Ban Asilus Azulei Bay. The Gemara now he changes the whole thing. Till now the way the Gemara came out, if we stop here, the halacha would be that if a man becomes an avel, he's also yichud with his wife, even though he's married already 20 years and they have relations many times. But the issue of avelus is not chomor, and therefore he's not allowed to be yichud. You have to get somebody to stay in the house at night. But now the Gemara says a different terrace. That changes everything. That avelus, even though it's not as serious as chorus, it's not neither. But also people are machmir in that also, and there's no chash that he's going to be transgressed. What? They're machmir like that also. Avelus here is different. Avelus the al machomer. Regular avelus is chomer to people, and they're not going to be mezalzel, and therefore there's no yichud. Not by nida and not by avelus.
That's Rabbi Ashi.
Yes, and when does it say over here that he has to sleep separately? The husband and even if they had relations already, avelus da'achach even like kilo abanas is but not over here. This is also because this avelus, the case for the chassan and kala, one of them became an avel and they had the milas mitzvah, and then they had relations and the shivit simei mishta, all that, and then they pushed off the avelus over here. it's more lenient. And they see the Avelos, it was pushed away. So then they're going to say that this Avelos is not such a Chomerdik Avelos, and they're going to have relations again during the 2 weeks. And that's why they say they're not allowed to have seclusion. But a regular Avel is Avelos is Chomer. My Kula, what's the case over here that's more lenient than other cases? If it's because he's allowed to have relations with his wife, with his Kala, even before they're buried, that's not a Kula. That's the reason is because the Avelos didn't start. It means the only issue to have relations is only during Avelos. But just because the relative died doesn't activate Avelos right away. There's a certain time that the Avelos starts. Before that, they called an One, not an Avel. And therefore, they would be mutter to have relations. That with us organizing it, that the Avelos shouldn't start. But it's not a Kula in Hilchas Avelos. We're not being a Mekel in Hilchas Avelos. We're just saying, don't start Avelos yet. Don't bury him yet. The Avelos doesn't start. Either Rabbi Elazar Aches in Pesach Habayis, either Rabbi Yeshua Aches in Magolo. When does Avelos start? Not when the base dies. Avelos starts either according to Rabbi Elazar when they leave the house going to the Levaya, or to Rabbi Yeshua going to the Kever, right? Or to Rabbi Yeshua once they finish burying and they close the Gola, that was the stone that closed up the Kever. So or the Ma'ora. So the reason why he had relations was not a Kula Nuchas Avelos. We just didn't start Avelos yet. So where is any Kula over here? Since we don't start even after they bury. So now they buried. So now the Avelos does start, and now we say that Shivas Yimei Mishnah goes first. The fact that they pushed away the Avelos 7 days because the Mishnah goes first. So then the people will say in that particular case the Avelos is lenient, and they would be Meko. In that particular case, they would be Meko to have relations during the 14 days. During the Avelos of the Shivas Yimei Avelos and the Mishnah and the Avelos. So that over here we said they shouldn't be secluded. But a regular case of Avelos, that's not considered a zilzul. So they would be machmir and not have relations, and you don't have to ask her as yichud. But even without as a yichud, it's also safe. They're not going to have relations. That's the end of the sugya. I mean, the Gemara is going to continue, but that's what we're doing for today. So we finished the sugya. Just to highlight a little bit of what we spoke about. The first Gemara said that in the case, I tried to sum it up. I didn't prepare the summary, but tried to do it. First, the Gemara says the whole halacha about getting married on Wednesdays only when Bezdin sits on Mondays and Thursdays, but days like before Takana Sezra or after Takana Sezra, where there's no such minhag of having Bezdin Mondays and Thursdays, there's no reason not to get married on Wednesday. There's a shaktu, like the Brisa says, you have to have 3 days preparation of the meal. That's called Takanos B'nos Yisrael. They should have a chashuv feast, and therefore, even if you make the marriage on a Tuesday, you still have to make sure that you had 3 days of preparation and do it before Shabbos if you have to. After that, it says in the Brisa that there was a sakana. The Gemara says sakana means that there was not sakanas nefashos mamish, but it was the hegmon. Yeah, the hegmon over there was really technically they didn't have to be mos nefesh, but some women might have because they're snuos or because. Okay, so therefore they would call it a sakana. We're not going to tell them that it's mutter for them to be with their husbands, even if it's they have relations, because prutzos would do it b'ratzon, kahanos or aser. So therefore they just looked aside that people got married on Tuesday, and on Tuesday the governor wouldn't come because he wasn't sure he's going to find anybody. So that's why they let him do it. But then there was an onus. Onus. What does onus mean? Tu pshatim either means that the government, the army would come and eat up all the food. That's why they couldn't do it on Wednesday. They couldn't do it Tuesday either because the battalion that came before to prepare the food, they would have taken the food on Tuesday also. So therefore, they made the wedding even on Mondays. Another possibility where you're allowed to do the emergency case is the case where you get into the case of Avelos, that the chassan's father died, and then if they're going to push off the meal, they're not going to have the meal. If the Kala's mother died, they're not going to have takshitin for next time they make the wedding. So therefore, they made an emergency that you could bury first Abilos mitzvah before you bury, they're not available. And then the Shivas Yimei Mishnah is going to take place, and after Shivas Yimei Avelos, and then they bury. And that's a kula. That's going to be the pshat that it is an onus, it's mutter, even though nothing to do with the Wednesday. Then it's going to be just that it's mutter, even though you're pushing away the mace in front of the chassan kala. And it says that there's some side halachas about yichud, which the Gemara comes out at the end of the whole Gemara comes out according to Rashi. The dafka by this Avelos will machmir that they shouldn't have yichud, even though they already had relations one time. But we're machmir that they shouldn't even be yichud because they might be lenient in this Avelos because we will make it over here. But Shivas Yimei Mishnah goes first. Usually we say that it's mutter, even by Avelos, we're going to say it's mutter, you don't have to have Issa Yichud. The first Gemara didn't hold like that, but let's say Rashi comes out, that seems to be halacha. There's no Issa of Kala to have her Tachshit, and even if she's an Avelos, because she shouldn't be Mizgana al Baila Kol Shloshim Yom. If it will be the chassan's mother or the chassan's Kala, there's no emergency. because they can make the chasana later, and only the chassan's father is the issue over here because he makes the suda and the mother's kal takes care of tachshitin. If it be the opposite, then they could push off, do the avelos first, and then make the chasana after that's all over. If then what's considered a hefsid by the meat, depends if it's a big krach, so then it's never a hefsid, and you can push it off. And if it's a small krach, it's always a hefsid. If it's a regular city, depends if the water was put on or not. And then the Bryce also has some more information that we got now. What was this about Misha Persa Ishto Nida? That by Nida also there's issue about not having yichud. If here the Gemara says if they didn't have bia, if they never had any relations, the woman became a Nida before they ever had bia, so then we don't trust them and they're not allowed to have yichud. But if they had bia one time, so then the Yitzhar is down and they could have yichud. The Gemara points out this whole thing about the
by Nida or
by Nida. Once they have relations, so then there's no, and also Maskani my Avelus also. Only this one case of Avelus that we did a pool over here. That's when we said that they can't have yichud even though they had bia one time. Here the Gemara says Dvom Shel Sin is knowing. That's what we said over here by the Shivas Mishnah. So the Shabbos and Yontif, always we say that Dvom Shel Sin is knowing that they're not allowed to have relations during the Shivas during the Avelus. Then the Gemara's whole issue, the whole is all about the difference between Avelus and the Gemara brought down the halacha about the Malachas Chiba, that by a Nida, the simple pshat of the Brisa says by Nida we're Machmir, and by Avelus we're Mekel. That the Gemara spoke about the chiluk between Avelus Nida. It could be that by Avelus that's the only time that we're Mekel, because the arousal is not going to get him, is not going to make them have relations because she's not interested. But Avelus Nida, we would be Machmir that she should not be Mosei Kasakos. I'm not sure if that comes to Maskana also. There's going to be a chiluk between Avelus Nida, Avelus Nida. According to Rashi's teretz, the Chorah is also going to be like that. But the first teretz of the Gemara goes that the Avelus in general is going to be killed to a person. I'm not sure the Maskana if that comes out. This could be even the Maskana. I have to check it up. That even the Maskana. This point the Gemara brings down about a husband and a wife, a spouse that they do Avelus with each other when it's in their presence, and also the halacha is other relatives also, but in the halacha in the halacha the Maisa, the Ashkenazim don't do this. And it says not to do it, and if someone does it, he's considered a wondrous person, like a shocking person. He does it against the minhag. The minhag is not to do, and it says that the whole reason is because the cover of the ovel, and the mochel nowadays, so people don't do this. But technically, the halacha would be that relatives do avelus in the presence of the ovel. And here it says, as far as getting makeup, that the woman, if she's an avelus, or if the husband is an avelus, she doesn't put on makeup, and both of them are kofa mitaso for each other. And what else? And the last thing the Gemara said, the chiluk was that according to Rashi, that avelus is also chamor, and there's no chash if they have yichud, only by this particular avelus where we will make we mazalza. What do? We do the shiva simei mission, then the shiva simei avelus. They might be making also to have relations during that time, and therefore we said there's issa yichud. But regularly, once they had relations one time, there's no chash anymore that they're going to be over on this issa of avelus, and therefore there's no issa yichud. Agav, the Gemara also mentioned when does avelus start? Does it start when they go out of the house towards the vital avaya, or till they cover up the grave? Yashikoch, we got up till one line up in the bottom. Omar. Right, so we're catching up. Okay, Yashikoch, everybody.
Same time.
Thank you very much. Shvu tov, everyone.
Everybody, thank you.
Okay, good.